Hello, my paper peeps. Today, I want to share with you how I decorate my junk journals. More specifically, the journal pages where you're going to be doing some writing. Now, it's a little different than the art pages I usually pull together. Stay with me because I want to show you 3 layouts that will allow you to satisfy that need to craft, but give you space for all that journaling that you want to do. So let's get to the craft room. Now, this junk journal has an autumn theme because we are in autumn. And this one is from the Pumpkin Patch Chronicles. And I'll put a link to this paper line in the description box below. But it does have journal pages in it, as well as art pages and places for you to flex that creative muscle if you want to use mixed media. So there are areas where you can do that as well. But today we're just going to focus on these areas where there is potential for journaling. So any places where there's lined paper, blank pages like this, you can journal on pages like this. But I'm going to show you how I usually set up these journal pages so that there is stamping, there's embellishing, but very minimal, because you want to focus on, or you actually want to leave space for the journaling itself. The one thing I like about this paper line is that it does come with ephemera that match the images in here. So if you find you're like, you know what, I don't want to embellish too much because this book will get really thick. So you have options like this page here where it's done for you. But let's just focus on these areas where there is the potential for journaling. And I'm going to show you how I set these pages up. Again, when it comes to the journal pages, producing that high impact image, but requiring very little, is what my goal is. And today I'm just going to show you, I have like 2 inks. That's all I'm going to use. A water mister, just a little bit of your transparent texture paste, and some other embellishing techniques here. But when it comes to mixed media, it's going to be very simple compared to what you might be used to. But again, like I said, I just want to show you what I do and how I like to keep it simple within just the journal pages themselves. So when you look at a journal page, they're usually quite stark. You just have sometimes just a white piece of paper with lines on it. And what I'll typically do is just deposit just a nice background hue to it. And in this case, I'm using the Distress ink in pumice stone. And then I'll just kind of, because this paper line has a little bit of gray in it, I thought, the gray would look quite nicely. And it's got a bit of just a brownish tinge, which works really well with the paper line as well. So, and I'll just deposit just a little bit of color just in this corner. And this is what I would call corner embellishing. And I'll usually use this technique in a lot of the journal pages that I'm going to be journaling in. If you are just journaling within your journal, you need something kind of like this, like a hard plastic, so that when you go and stamp directly onto the page, you get a good clear stamp here. So even before you deposit, that background here, you can place, this acrylic baseboard underneath. After I've deposited a color, then what I'll do next is stamp. And here I'm just going to be using the walnut stain here. Again, anything I use in this paper line or in this video, I'll put a link to all that in the description box below. But I'll just take any stamp, and then what I will do is take that same ink color and I will just take a background stencil. So it's a stamp, so it's a background hue, a stamp, and then a stencil. Now with that same color, I'm just gonna place a little bit on my waffle mat here. Give it a good spritz. And then pick up some of that ink mixed with the water. And just splatter that everywhere. I'll even put some on the other side. So again, it just, you know, draws everything, you know, towards this, like it all belongs. Okay, and then the next thing I'll do is do something simple like lay down some washi tape. Now, the one thing I love about using washi tape is I love extending it beyond the page and pulling it onto the other side here. Just like that. And then what I'll do is I'll take a sentiment. So this is considered kind of the basic background with snippet strips and banner embellishing. That's what I call this layout. And what I'll do is I'll take a banner. And what I want to do is add one of these gold staples to the end here before I adhere it to that. But for some reason, I don't know where my stapler is. This is what happens when you have little kiddos that love to get into your crafting room. And I'm trying to figure out, I have not found it in a couple of days. So this is what I want to do, is actually like staple that and then adhere that to the page. I will find my stapler. Or I'm just gonna go steal theirs. Hold on a sec. Okay, I have no idea where my kids put my stapler, but you know what, it's most likely me and me misplacing it. So I shouldn't blame anybody else. But what I would normally do is, and the reason why I would staple this is because most banners have some kind of, you know, attachment here. You can use brads here or you can, like I said, use a stapler here and just staple it on. And I will, once I find my gold staple or the actual stapler, I'm gonna use that and just, and then adhere it onto there. The silver's fine, but I kind of preferred the gold. Not a big deal. I'll bug my children later when they come home and get them to tell me where they put the stapler. Either way, that is the first layout. So very simple. I mean, there's still area here where you can journal. And again, it's very simple, just stamping, stenciling, and then laying down some washi tape and a sentiment. And then like some kind of 3D element I like to add in the background as well. So that's the first one. And what I'll do is I'll repeat that throughout the journal so that you see this whole image and this whole layout several times throughout the journal to kind of make it more cohesive in nature. Now the second layout I'm going to do, see this, again, this has another part here that you can add to, but I like the whole idea of just leaving it like that. Okay, here's a good part of the journal that we can go to. This one I would do the same basic general background, but I call this the texture, paste, and tiny trims layout. Again, it has the same kind of cohesive feel, but a little different. So what we'll do now, again, is just prep the background. And again, using the same thing, the Distress ink in pumice stone. Next thing I'm gonna do is follow it up with a stamp. So once I've placed that background hue, I'm going to add another dimension, and that's with Versamark and some kind of text stamp. Now I got this stamp from Hero Arts. It's quite old. You can pretty much use any text stamp. And then what I'll use here is the Distress embossing glaze. This is one of my favorite embossing tools, is because when you place it on the page and it dries, you can actually see whatever's going on underneath. and you can actually write on top of it. Now what you can do or do in the future is instead of laying the background stamp first, you can lay down the text with the embossing glaze first and then place the background hue on. So you'll see here the lettering ends up drying with a bit of a glaze and gloss to it, which I really like. Again, some kind of three-dimensional effect to your paper. Follow this up with my paint splashes. Now the next thing we're going to do is add the stencil. Again, in keeping with the same simple colors here, I'm going to add a little bit of this, this walnut stain down here. And then I'm going to take some of this transparent texture paste. And I'm using transparent because I want to be able to see the text underneath. You can pick up some of this too if you want. Just add a little bit more there. And using that same stencil that we used in the last layout, I'm going to use it here too. There, and you can see how the text is shining through. And now I'm just going to dry it. I'm just going to take some ephemera from the line. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Christine, and I love creating DIY scrapbook journals with the intention of adding, photos of events or things that are happening throughout the year or throughout that season that I'm journaling in. And that's why a lot of the paper lines that I create actually have frames in them. So you have that option of adding photos to your journals. The other thing I love to add, tags and tabs and all that stuff, but that will come later. So anyways, my crafting community is always on the lookout for any new additions that I add to my paper lines, because I'm notorious for that. I will create a basic paper line, and then as time goes on, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll add a new tag here, or maybe I'll add a card set. Because one of the things I love to do when I am journaling is someone always comes to mind, and then I feel this urge to want to write a letter of encouragement or a letter that just says hello to them. And so sometimes I'll be like, oh, I need to add, cards, postcards, DIY envelope to the paper line. And so I always have my crafting community always waiting for those new additions. So if you're part of this journey with us, then go ahead and download that paper line and just be forewarned, there's going to be new stuff coming out. But don't worry, I will actually send any new additions to you via email for free. Okay, I lied. I did pull out chipped sapphire just because I like to ink the edges of my ephemera. And the one thing I love about adding sentiments, aside from your ephemera, like this one says, autumn, the year's last loveliest smile. I like that kind of ripped look. And seeing as you can see it throughout the whole journal here, this is how I add these elements to the journal, is I will rip them, and I always rip towards me so that you get that raw edge showing through. And then I will ink that. Yeah, just like that looks good. You can see how the embossing or the texture paste is transparent, and you can see the text from underneath shining through. But aside from that three-dimensional aspect, like I said, I always like to add a metal embellishment. You don't necessarily have to add a metal embellishment, but what I will do is continue to add more of a three-dimension to this page, and that's using mini prills. This is by far, if there's anything you're going to splurge on this year, if you love flowers, butterflies or anything like that, then you know what, buy the whole gamut of mini prills, because this is kind of like gems, but just better. Well, I wouldn't say better, but just an alternative, especially if you're used to using gems all the time. And I will usually just use any kind of adhesive bond. You can use any adhesive. So there, that is your second layout page, which is again what I call the basic background page with texture paste and tiny trims. And I know I said it's supposed, this is a funny thing, it's supposed to be corner embellishing, and yet everything seemed to have creeped up on this page. It's supposed to be kind of concentrated to this area. But again, whenever I'm filming, for some reason, it doesn't turn out the way I want it to, but my other pages will have everything mostly concentrated in the bottom right, so that you have all this space to journal in, but you get the gist of it. So that's my second page, which I will do pretty much throughout the journal, and just use obviously the same process, but then again, different. I mean, this paper line has so many different pumpkins and stuff. So different elements in that area. Okay, we're gonna do the third and final background. This one I call the basic background, my torn and tattered look. I actually have, you can see here, paper bag in there. So I thought, and since, you know, the journal has this whole torn and tattered look in it, I thought this would be fitting as a third background for my journal pages. So I'll just clip that there. Okay, I'm just going to lay down my background as usual, trying to make sure that I stay within the corner of this journal page. Then I'll take that stencil. So doing the basic background with stencil, stamp, and then my water droplets. I don't mind putting some on that paper bag next to it. And this is where this whole idea of tattered and torn comes in. Everything else is just tattered and torn pages layered on one on top of one another to give a really good layout to this page. And I'm just going to use an old book here. And use some ephemera from the paper line. I'll use this one. And what I'll do is, I'm gonna cut that straight off here. Just do a kind of a cleaner tear. And then what I'll do is I'll take the other page that I have and kind of have it follow the same kind of look. So I'll just kind of line these up and then just tear. So it kind of has the same look here, just like that. I have some of these kind of vintage labels and stickers that I'll put on there as well. And let's see here. And we'll do this one. Tear that. We'll see what we'll do with that. Now, when you come across old pages like this, it's old. And so just using adhesive, you might need a lighter type of adhesive to get this to it here without it ripping. Don't use this that I tried using on my last one and it ended up ripping. So use, I think I'm going to use the Mod Podge here to seal it on. And yeah, you can use Mod Podge as your main adhesive throughout this journal. This one actually has an adhesive here. Cut that off. And then in keeping with, you know, this whole torn look, paper look, layering paper, I continue to do that, but instead I'm using, now in this case, I'm going to use some of this transfer paper here and add that to it as well. There you go. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want more tips and tricks on how to jazz up your journal, or if you want to embark on this journey with us, I will put a link to all the videos that correspond to this journal and how I pull this all together. Until I see you in those videos, take care, have a fantastic week, and we will see you in those other videos. Bye.